you so much for your time
My
with
pleasure.
us today. I'm
My
happy to be here. Now, of course, before I came here, I did a bit of research on you, and I was shocked to realize that you graduated with a third class.
Interestingly so.
You know, and I'm like, how does a person who has this level of deep insights come out with a third class? How is that even possible?
The third class is actually a miracle. If I had finished with a pass, what's after PQ? If I finished with a quaz or a raz or a zaz, it should have been a testimony all the same. I rose up from the dust of drug addiction, cultism. I've spent 12 years in the university studying a 4-year course. So that third class is after 12 years of study. Though I live a first class life.
Exactly. So how
that's
does it
that's even more interesting. And you know, I've looked back at my history, some of the mistakes I've made, some of the wrong judgment in managing my life, and looking back at what I do now, how much of young people I represent, how much of strength in the way that I have it, in the little way that I have it, I am able to share with those who connect with what I represent. There's no way I could be doing that if I didn't have the privilege of my history. Because it's not everybody that can go through what I've gone through and be able to stand as a model that I think I am today. So it's providence, right? It's how I think God has shaped my destiny and been given the grace to be able to go through so much and be able to stand where I am today, victorious and able to inspire so many other young people.
You're one of the very few people in Nigeria today who actually always emphasizes the role of the citizen in ensuring that Nigeria becomes a changed nation. Because more often than not, most of us always call names, you know, we're criticizing behind our laptops. Nobody ever takes responsibility. Now, I have a quote from you that I would like to read. And it says, "No nation on the surface of the earth can experience meaningful change and enduring transformation through armchair criticism or name calling." So I'd like to ask you, what then is the role of a citizen in ensuring that there's change in a nation?
You know, this is a question I've been asked at different times. I see this situation like a basket of raw eggs. If you have a basket of raw eggs, and every 4 years you go to the basket to pick 4 eggs randomly to represent that basket. And every time you get to the frying pan, you break the eggs, and there are 4 rotten eggs. You go back to the basket again and pick 4 randomly. Take it to the frying pan, you break it, 4 rotten eggs. 4 years after, you return to the frying pan, you pick another 4 randomly. You go back to the frying pan, you break them, 4 random eggs. And if for 50 years, you've been picking raw eggs randomly from that basket of raw eggs, and each one you have picked for 50 years has turned out to be rotten eggs, does that not suggest that the basket itself could be a basket of not just raw eggs, but raw, rotten eggs? And with that analogy, if you want to really have good eggs that is consumable, you need to return to that basket and see how you can work on that basket, either by some form of reinvention or by some input. You have to be able to ensure that you have the right eggs in that basket, so that anytime you pick from that basket, you have the right eggs in your frying pan. So Nigerian leadership is not outsourced. We didn't import the leadership from America or from Jamaica. The leadership is picked from amongst Nigerians. So if we don't like our leadership, we shouldn't like ourselves, because those who lead us are from us. They are not from outside. And the leadership of Nigeria is somewhat a photograph of who Nigerians are. That is the truth. We may find that very difficult to swallow, but there's something fundamentally wrong in the way we do things that our leaders represent. You know, I dare
say that most of the people who criticize because they've not found themselves in the kind of opportunities that can expose their slowness of character. When people get into government, we like to say government has changed them. Oh, when he got into government, he was a social critic before. He was saying great things before. When he got into government, he just changed. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. You don't become a thief because you stole. You steal because you are a thief. I'll take that again.
Okay, yes, I was going to say that. Please do.
You don't become a thief because you stole something. You steal because you are a thief. Such that if you don't ever have the misfortune or the opportunity to steal in your lifetime, it doesn't make you less a thief if you are a thief. By some assumption or experiences, you are already a thief. That is why you steal. Even if you don't ever steal, you are still a thief. Given the right pressure, given the right stress, you will relapse to yourself, to the person you have become, not by the design of nature, but by your experiences, has somehow converted you into that kind of person that can steal. I'll say that there's a big difference between making a choice between bad and worse, making a choice between good and bad, making a choice between good and better, than making a choice between better and best. It doesn't require any level of intelligence to make a choice between bad and worse. It doesn't make it, because whichever way you go is a zero-sum game. It's pain all the same, right? We make such choices a lot in Nigeria. In fact, in most of our elections, we've always made decisions between bad and worse.
Better of two evils.
Yes, and then you make a choice between good and bad. That's easy choice. If I ask you, where would you rather work? Zenith Bank or ISIS camp? Where would you rather work? Would you rather work for MTN or Al-Qaeda? I think any fool can make that choice. If you want to get married, and I say choose between an arm robber and a chorister in church, that's no-brainer, right? But if I ask you to choose between two choristers in church, they both go to church, they both read the Bible, they are both every day, there every Sunday, that demands a bit more from you. It's no longer as easy as making a choice between an arm robber and a chorister, right? That is a choice between two safe alternatives, two seemingly safe alternatives. That is like making a choice between good and better, or making a choice between better and best. In America, when they are choosing their presidents, so to say, Barack Obama and McCain, John McCain, both of them will be good presidents anywhere else. In America, we still have to choose between McCain and Obama, because it's not about being good, it's about being better. It's not about being better, it's about being best. Now that tells you the quality of the people's thinking, the fact of the choice before you instruct us about the person making the choice. So because of they have to choose between those two good people, it will tell you the kind of thinking that the average American controls. So that is important. When you see the choices before us, it says a lot. Few Nigerians can make the choice between good and better. Very few Nigerians. They rarely make that choice. Fewer Nigerians can make the choice between better and best. We rarely make those choices. Most Nigerians can make a choice between good and bad. Most Nigerians can, and that's a weak way of thinking. More Nigerians can make a choice between bad and worse. Interesting.
We make it all the time.
We make it all the time. So when we talk about the mass ignorance of the people, is the idea that people are not educated. At best, they are academically wired. But academics is different from education. Passing the test of academics is different from passing the test of education. So you have people who are academically sound. That is their right to receive knowledge, organized knowledge, from those who organize them, all right? In such a quality way that they can recall. Academics is the test of recall. Education is the ability of the human spirit to experience its environment, to question it enough, observe it deeply, to find the options that exist in that environment, and to know the options to embrace as a matter of supreme urgency and importance. That's education. I can say it again. The ability of the human spirit to observe and question its environment deep enough to find the options that exist in it and to know the ones to embrace as a matter of supreme urgency and importance. When a man or a human being cannot do that, even with a PhD, is an illiterate because he's not educated. Now, the general aggregation of the thinking of the Americans, for example, is that, you know, they can do that. They can do that. The average taxi driver can do that. He can explain what GDP is. He can listen to a debate between two presidential candidates and understand what they mean by jobs, by per capita income, by GDP, by immigration, and how all of those things affect the nation. They can understand global warming. They can understand climate change. They know how those things work. The average Nigerian is clueless when that conversation is going on. So you have the front cover of a newspaper say, oh, there's been a bombing in Yanya, in Abuja, or they found a house in Ibadan with human parts, you know. So forensic experts have gone there, they've cordoned up the place, and they are taking necessary samples. Wow. And that made it to the front cover of a newspaper. Listen to it. That made it to the front cover of a newspaper. The front cover of a newspaper in a third world nation is the proof of the thinking of the elites in that nation. So the assumption is, who buys newspapers in a third world nation? The upperly mobile professionals, the business people, otherwise called the elites. The conscious minds in that environment are the ones that buy the newspaper. So anytime you have a front cover of a newspaper, it means the media house that is set up to make a profit has found the most important news that they are convinced that the readers will buy. Who are these readers? The elites. So the cover of a newspaper shows you the thinking of the elites in a nation. Now, if what they put in the cover of the newspaper is sound, it tells you that the people in that nation, the elites, are sound. That is why they have to give them sound information to appreciate and then exchange purchasing power for. When the cover of a newspaper is silly and stupid, that tells you that the elites of that nation are most likely silly and stupid. And the idea is that when the elites of a nation are lost, the nation is lost.
I personally always have this 4-year term I give myself in my life. So every 4 years I do a review. Great. And I realize that each and every single one of us actually has a 4-year term. Whether it's in your office, whether it's your family, wherever it is, it actually has to do with you. Yes. So it's not necessarily always about, oh, the government hasn't done this, the government hasn't done that. And it's interesting that I was watching actually this program on History Channel, I don't know if you've seen it, The Men Who Built America.
Yes.
And I was shocked to realize that America was actually not built by the government, it was built by entrepreneurs. Yes. And you know, then I began to see that, for example, Vanderbilt laid the modern railroad, yes. What's his name, Thomas Edison created electricity, JP Morgan funded it, yes. Dale Carnegie was the master of steel, which was used to build bridges. And you know, and anytime I have this conversation with people, and I'm like, guys, the government, yes, but governments do not actually build countries. People get upset and they get very angry because you see pictures of the president in private jets, we read about the amounts of money people have stolen, and people are like, you think I should prefer solutions to these people that are balling? You must be having a laugh. You know, so there's a disconnect, and rightly so too, to be honest, because people are going through a tough time, people are struggling. You know, so how does one balance the role of a citizen, the role of the government, and still prefer or create a change in the midst of this hardship?
You know, I am convinced that the number one problem in Nigeria is the mass ignorance of the people. The people, like I said, lack clarity. Clarity is key. We have to organize to offer clarity to our people. And the assumptions that allows a Nigerian to decide the direction of his submission who he wants to have on top of him, so to say. Those assumptions themselves need to be audited properly and organized, because how do you prefer me to somebody else? What are the criteria? By what assumptions do you prefer me? How do you choose amongst hundreds of ladies in your life who you should marry? How do you choose amongst hundreds of men who you should marry? The reason why we choose wrong leaders is the same reason why we choose wrong husbands and wrong wives. People lack clarity. And when you understand the options before you and the kind of contents that they hold, you are able to simply choose what is right between, a well-packaged biscuit and a rat poison. Just by any assumption, if you assume rat poison is pizza, you are going to consume it with passion, and you are dying passionately. People are sincerely wrong. People are sincerely in prison. People are sincerely poor. People are sincerely frustrated. People are sincerely divorced. People are sincerely raped, sincerely killed. Because sincerity is not an independent variable, it's a dependent one. Responsibility is the name of the game. You don't hope you know. You need to know that you know. And for you to know that you know, with all humility, I know that I know. I know that I know because I know the kind of investment that I make into my clarity. And it's been tested across different platforms. I know very much that I know. We need to know that we know. It's not enough to hope you are doing the right thing. It's only enough to know that you are doing the right thing. So I challenge power centers everywhere to think seriously about how to organize and legislate clarity. We need to begin to budget for clarity. If you look at all the nation building instruments that we have, none. It's about how to get the average Nigerian to think, clearly. And let me tell you, those kind of assumptions must consider some very important areas, like the family. The crisis of the family is the crisis of the nation. Everybody we don't like in society, everybody in jail, everybody killing, everybody in Boko Haram camp, everybody that is doing wrong, everybody we don't like came from a family. When the curriculum in the family is faulty, you pretty much are creating a faulty society. So the people who shoot people, they are victims. They are victims by a standard that society in its flawed standards cannot capture. And that error is from the family system. In most part of the world, people assume they can be good parents by default. But they didn't assume they could be good lawyers by default, or they could be good doctors by default. You don't just grow up to an age and go ask for a medical degree. You don't just become 54 and say, look, this is enough, I want to be a lawyer tomorrow, give me a degree. You don't take your birth certificate to a university to ask for a degree. You don't take your birth certificate to a bank to ask for money. They will jail you. If you really want to be taken seriously, you have to make a contribution. And it's from here, right? So when it comes to family though, we make those assumptions that I can be a good wife. I go to naming ceremonies and I have the blessing at times misfortune of officiating, and I ask, who has a degree here? Almost all hands go up. Master's pro, PhD, some hands. Certifications, PMP, PDP, sorry, APC, Queen's 2, Prince 2. I mean, people have all manner of degrees. I can't, And then, who has a workshop, certificate of attendance for wifehood, or for husbandhood, or for friendship, or for parenthood? Nobody. People just assume they can play these roles by default, just because their birth certificate says they can. So somebody just look at himself and say, I need to marry now. Why? I'm 36. If I'm 36, I should settle down now. And so without any form of intelligence, without any clarity, it settles down to begin to torture somebody's life, to begin to punish a woman, or begin to punish a man, because he doesn't have what it takes to manage that kind of environment. So I think that we have to consider those kind of inputs.
Okay, now you've said it a few times now that we need to find ways to think in this country. We don't think, we don't look deeply. How does a person think? So what are the steps that we can take immediately without waiting for anybody to actually begin to look inwards, to begin to take responsibility, and to create people that can be between better and best?
Yeah, I would say first of all, we need to organize against the mass ignorance of people and offer education, not academics. Every time we think about education in this country, what we are talking about is what you can be taught, not what you can teach yourself. Academics is what you can be taught. Education is what you can teach yourself through self-improvement and observation. That is the conversation we need to have. We need to get Nigerians educated by that standard, not academically correct by the popular standard. So we need to see, how do we make that happen for everybody? Let's have that conversation. Let's have another conversation about how every Nigerian can take responsibility for stewardship of private property, not ownership. For now, what every Nigerian knows is ownership of private property. So who are the people in government? People who believe in ownership of property, private property, but who also think they can offer stewardship of private property, of public property. You believe in ownership of private property, but you don't believe in stewardship of private property, but you want to offer stewardship of public property. You are going to fail. It's a wrong equation. For you to offer stewardship of public property, you must pass the test of stewardship of private property. And when you move from ownership to stewardship, even for what is rightly yours, then you are big enough to lead the public. And number three, we need to blend our diversity. It's so important that we blend our diversity. We need to have conversations about how to blend our diversity. And by that, I mean everywhere. I meet Nigerians every day who claim to be Nigerians. I meet Yorubas who claim to be Nigerians. I meet Igbos who claim to be Nigerians. Northerners who claim to be Nigerians. South people who claim to be Nigerians. Right? But I've not met 10 Nigerians in my lifetime willing to make equal the borderlines of pain and bliss, regardless of religion or ethnic sentiments. I've not found those. What I found is people who are, first of all, indigenous. They respect their indigenization more than their nationalization. So in America, two brothers can be governors in two different states, the Bush brothers. In Nigeria, you can never have two brothers as governors in two different states because of the weakness of indigenization. That is possible in America because there is no indigenization there, right? It doesn't matter where you come from. It's about a national idea. We need to blend our diversity by recognizing an ideological class that can bind us together. And until we have such conversation and everybody is willing to make Nigeria first before the embarrassment and the weakness and smallness of indigenization, we'll continue to have these struggles. If we don't put religion in perspective, religion is not faith. Religion is a human effort to interpret the universe and interpret God. It has not worked. One of the greatest evil in our world today is religion. And then being able to organize our communities, and know that nobody should take me seriously if I have no influence over this neighborhood. And I want to have influence over Lagos State or over, we have to think community and look for people who build community. I can go on and on. But those are the kind of conversations we need to be able to organize for and need to begin to have very seriously so that the right benchmarks can emerge.
Wow.
In the future.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much. Whoa.
I disappoint people when I say that it's almost impossible to change this country.
Ha.
What I've not
That's
said.
how we have said ever since morning.
I'm still saying the same thing. I'm still saying the same thing. What I've not said is that it is impossible.
Okay.
But no part of us should downplay what it will take. And that's why I say it's almost impossible.